Hello, friend. John Dalton here, Further Emergence podcast, where we explore consciousness, the mystery, and love. This week we're going into possibilities, being loved, meaning, perseverance, the mind, and desire. Now, let's have a quick review of the memes on the Further Emergence Instagram feed. First one, I didn't write this one. It's like a billboard. And it says, remember that some of the best times of your life haven't even happened yet. What a happy thought. What a pleasant thought. Particularly if you're older, if you're an older person, you know, if you're maybe 60 or 70 or 80. This idea of that some of the best times of your life haven't even happened yet. That's a very beautiful way of thinking about the future, because our minds like to think about the future, likes to imagine the future, and likes to compare with the past, and likes to compare now with the past and go, you know, the best years of my life are behind me. And they're not, you know. They may be. You won't know that till it's all over. But having this sense of some of the best times of your life haven't even happened yet, that's a beautiful perspective. So I think that's a beautiful little meme. Next one I did write. It says, it's a picture, it's a cross-section of a blade of grass. And what it says is, this is a cross-section of a single blade of grass. The smiley faces are the channels water is drawn up through. Definite proof that you are loved, no? So if you're listening to this, when you see the cross-section, they've used some dyes to highlight different parts of it or whatever. But in the cross-section, there are definite smiley faces in the blade of grass. It's so cute. It really is. And to me, it immediately kind of goes, wow. You know, of all the different things that could be in the blade of grass, to have smiley faces. And yes, humans do that thing, anthropomorphize everything. They turn everything into, you know, cars with the two headlights and that, you know, it's like a little face. I know that. But there's also some kind of reflection in this, and I think it's beautiful and so encouraging. And to think that it's like whatever created this reality that we're in went to the trouble of secretly hiding little smiley faces in the cross-section of a blade of grass so that someday some scientist would discover it and kind of go, is that a smiley face? I think that's real indication that this creation is made with love. The next one is of a mirror, and what's written on the mirror, it says, what's meant for you will find you, even if you feel like it has already passed you. I like this one because it reminds me of a saying my mother used to have, which is something along the lines of, if it's meant for you, it won't pass you. Not that my mother had an accent like that, but just, you know, she used to say that. And it's nice, particularly when you've got your agency in a particular thing, meaning, you know, you're doing what you need to achieve your goals and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But there is a point where you have to just surrender, really. When you've done everything that you can and there's nothing more that you can do, there comes a point where you do have to surrender. And this is a beautiful place to surrender to. This idea that what's meant for you, it's going to find you, even if you feel like it's already past you. And I've been there myself. I'm sure you have as well. And then out of nowhere, it just appears. So I think that's great. Next one I did write. It says, give it meaning. And it's a picture of a pavement with a crack in it with a little band-aid and a little flower. It's all beautiful. My daughter actually put this one together for me. My daughter Yasmin. It says, give it meaning. Find it, manufacture it, invent it. Direct all the creativity you can muster to giving your day meaning. It's a lifeline that will slowly lift you from the quicksand of monotony. Become an undercover saint. Spend your day giving, reaching out, supporting, listening, meditating, loving, encouraging. You can change the world. You're doing great. So, yeah, it's true. Like, give your day meaning for no other reason than it just gives you pleasure to give your day meaning. Whether your day has any meaning or not is really beside the point. Whether we are living in a, you know, whether this is all just random chaos or not, doesn't matter, you know. What matters to me is how I feel on the inside. So I curate how I feel on the inside. I choose how to feel on the inside. And this is one of the ways, is through deciding to give my day meaning. I don't know if it has any meaning, and I don't really care. But I do care about how I feel. And through deciding that my day is going to have meaning, I feel better. And one of the ways is I'm suggesting here is becoming an undercover saint. I mean, I just love that idea. I think I came up with it. I don't think I heard it somewhere else. The idea of being an undercover saint, where you're doing all these things, where you're reaching out, you're supporting, you're listening, and you're kind of like, you're playing at being an undercover saint, and you're giving and whatever. That brings so much meaning to your day and just makes the whole thing just more enjoyable. So I recommend it. I didn't write the next one. It's written on the side of a wall, or, it's one of those memes. It's pretending to be written on the side of the wall. It says, nobody really has their shit together. We're all hurting and learning and growing in different ways. Keep going. I mean, that's so encouraging, isn't it? Just the idea, like whenever I come across anything that says, no one has their act together, we're all just doing our best, my shoulders drop a little bit in a way that I didn't even know that they were, up. Just like, oh, that's so encouraging. No one really has their act together, at all. It's just a thing my mind thinks that I, could be living a better life. Or could, there is a possibility of having one's act together, and I just don't. Like, oh, it's not true. Everyone's the same. Everyone's just doing their best. Everyone's just winging it, So very good. And then the last one is a little cartoon, 2 panels of, I think it's a crocodile. It's either a crocodile or an alligator. Let's say it's a crocodile. So a big crocodile and then a little mouse. And the thought bubble that's coming out of the mouse, or the speech bubble that's coming out of the mouse, is, sometimes I feel like nobody can see me. And then the next panel is of the mouse sitting on top of the crocodile's head. So he's right up in the air. And the crocodile's now wearing a t-shirt. And it says, hey, look, with an arrow, and it's a drawing of the mouse, and it's pointing up. So the arrow is pointing up to the crocodile's head so that you can see the mouse. And it says, this mouse is really great. And it's just so sweet. It's just so, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as, somebody says they're not feeling brilliant. They're not, they're struggling a little bit. And if you happen to be a tall crocodile and you can put them on their head and put a t-shirt on that says, hey, look at this person on my head, they're brilliant. Why not do that? I mean, energetically, don't mean, you buy the t-shirt, but maybe do buy the t-shirt. Farm news. The main farm news this week is rain. My God, we've had so much rain. I've never seen the river so high. I might be able to drop in a little bit of footage of the how high the river was. But yeah, it's just been... I'm amazed I'm not depressed, because it's been really dark. It's been raining, grey skies. Stick your nose outside the door and it's like, nope, you stay inside. I'm like, okay. And, and we're nearly in April. It's amazing. So yeah, big dump of rain. It hasn't stopped me getting out, but it's been pretty relentless. And as I say, rivers are very high. Hey, did you know these podcasts are on YouTube? If you're watching on YouTube, of course you do. But if you're listening, maybe you didn't know that. Yes, they're on YouTube, and you can see me, particularly when I go outside. Not so much to see me outside, but to see the beautiful nature that I'm walking around in, as you'll see later on in this episode, if you happen to be watching it on YouTube. If you're not, well, you can always go and watch it on YouTube. I encourage you to. Do you know I have a blog? I write things every week, pretty much. And I send out what I write in these little friendly notes on Sundays. So you can sign up for those, and you can do that on the website, furtheremergence.com. So you can have a look at the blog, the different things that I'm writing, and you can sign up for my friendly notes on Sundays. If you'd like to write to me with a question or let me know how it's going for you, I'd love to hear from you. It's john@furtheremergence.com. john@furtheremergence.com. So here's a question. This person says, hello, John. I'd love to know more about our mind. A psychologist friend I used to work with described it as a 5-year-old child. I'd love to hear your perspective on our mind, its role, our mind and meditation, and any other insights about our mind you can share with us. When you talk about, in your experience, that there are many parts of us, is your mind one part, or do the parts have their own mind? Thank you always for sharing your wisdom, insights, experience, and kindness with us. In kindness, Kathy. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, well, let me go outside to answer this one. Well, the thing about your mind is that it's a word we use, the mind this, the mind that, and we talk about it like it's a thing, but really when you sort of start to examine it, it's pretty crazy, really, the thing that we call our mind. Because, for example, when you're meditating, if you begin to develop you begin to observe yourself thinking, okay? So you can see yourself thinking, you can see yourself getting upset, you can see yourself working things out. So that kind of begs the question, like, if you are observing your mind thinking, then you're obviously not your mind. Even though the thing that you might be thinking about feels like it's about you. Why did that person say that thing about me? Why did I say that thing to that person? What am I going to do about this other thing? It feels like, well, that's me. That's me thinking about me, isn't it? But if you're observing yourself thinking those thoughts, then you are not those thoughts. You're something else. Now, what that something else is that your mind? I'm not so sure. I have a feeling, or my sense of it is, that is your presence, the thing that continues on into deep dreamless sleep, though you're not aware of it. But the thing that's not aware of it is your mind, that's kind of self-reflective capacity. So the mind, I think, is a pretty, little small word for a big idea and a big thing. And I think the main thing, most important thing to do with your mind is to be compassionate. Because, as you say, there are many different parts of us on the inside. And it's easy to kind of beat up on them. And for one part to kind of go, you're very unconscious, you part. You made me eat those cookies at midnight. You made me snap at somebody that I love. It's your fault. Bad mind. Monkey mind. This kind of stuff. It's all you. It's like you're beating yourself up. And it's so unkind. And your mind is not the problem. It's the idea of a mind. If there wasn't a label, like putting a label on it and going, oh, it's just the mind. It's my mind thoughts. At loose. I've got uncontrollable mind thoughts. Thinking of it in those terms, that's the problem as far as I can see. Because it's all you. And there are different parts of you, and some parts of you feel as though they are more conscious than other parts of you. And as I said, it often feels to me like, sitting in a cinema. And I'm sitting in a cinema and my nose is practically up against the screen. And all my, I'm really invested in everything that's going on the screen. I think it's all me, and I think it's all really important. And I'm like, ooh, I'm just reacting to everything, okay? Then I start to meditate and I sort of feel as if I'm one row back now, and hey, there's the me in front of me in the cinema, and I'm observing myself reacting. I'm observing myself having all those thoughts, and I'm like, whoa, okay, well, that part of me is very reactive. That part of me is very, jumpy, and oh my God, it's so unconscious, that part of me. And then I meditate some more, another couple of years or weeks or whatever. And then I kind of go, hey, I'm in the seat behind that person. So now I'm 3 seats back, and I can see the part of me judging the part of me that's in front. So now there's 3 bits of me, and I'm like, okay, that's a little bit unkind. That's a little bit judgmental. And then there's the bit in front that's reacting. And then I meditate some more. And then I'm 4 rows back, and I can see all these different parts of me responding and interacting. And then I meditate some more, and I'm 5 rows back. And then I can see that the 3rd row version of me is arguing about the 2nd row, and it's like there's all sorts of difficulties and things going on. So it's complicated in there, and that's why I say there's not just one of us. There's many of us. So being kind to all these different parts, that seems to be like the most important thing. To be kind, to be compassionate with all the different parts, to not give yourself a hard time. We are predisposed to giving ourselves a hard time, so don't add to it by just throwing in all this spiritual consciousness stuff in on top of it. Fuel for the fire kind of thing. Being kind, understanding. if you happen to feel like there's a part of you that is a little bit less conscious than another part of you, then relate to it the same way you would a child that you love. Not a child that you are annoyed at or a child that you want to, beat up. I mean, because that's what we do. But a child that is scared and is fearful. And how would you soothe that child? That's how I relate to unconscious parts of me. Do I think that each one of those parts have a mind of their own? I don't think so. I think the idea of a mind is just this prism that it's a way of talking about it. It's a way of talking about our mind. And really, it is a bit like a microphone. It's just which part has the microphone. I kind of think, and the microphone is what we would call the mind, or the way of thinking about it. So I wouldn't get too fixed on, oh well, all these different parts of me have their own mind. It's more to keep going deeper, keep pulling back, because in that analogy of the cinema, you can keep going back and back, further and further into the dark and into what I call the mystery, where there is communication, but it's not in words. Whereas the more frontal parts, yeah, lots of words. The very frontal part of me, I kind of call it Little John. Lots of words, lots and lots and lots of words. And it's the bit that talks the most. But the communications that come from the very deep parts of me, not so much, not so verbal. And you can be conscious of all those different parts of you all at the same time. A bit like being in a forest and being able to see all the trees all at the same time. So the main thing I think about the mind is to be conscious of it, and to be compassionate towards it, to not get too fixed and rigid about it, and to keep going deeper with it, to explore it and find out more and more and more, and be open to more and more of it. It is a remarkable phenomenon. Science can't put any definition on it. Science hasn't been able to define consciousness. They don't know where it is. They say it's in your brain. They have had a go at saying it's in your brain, but then they kind of go, well, it's not really. We don't even know where it is, And I think that's just an indication of that it is part of that kind of mysterious aspect of it. So, yeah, main thing: be kind to your mind. It's doing like the bit at the front that's got its nose up against the screen. It has to deal with everything, and it's the least resourced, it's the least conscious part of me. So I feel for it, and I've got lots of time for it, and I want to help it become more conscious all the time. Now, in response to the question I post on Instagram, what is the biggest challenge you're facing in your spiritual life at the moment? This person says, a balance between needs and desires. Desires like sex, food, for example, meat, or something which exploits nature but tastes good, and travel, using means and resources that cause harm to the environment. Desires to accumulate materialistic things, living in a world where needs merge with all those desires ever so smoothly. It's hard to choose which desire I want to reach for and when to say all my needs are met. I don't know if that sounds clear or not, but it's kind of foggy in my head as well. Therefore, even the definition of spirituality that suits my understanding is not 100% clear. There's a constant inner debate going on. What about you, John? Do you see any obstacles in your spiritual journey? It would be great if you could talk in one of your episodes about what spirituality is in your view and how to find a path to your spiritual journey. Well, firstly, in terms of needs and desires and that kind of thing, a friend of mine many years ago said to me, when you're on the spiritual journey or spiritual life, you'll always have a roof over your head and you'll always have food. You mightn't like the roof and you mightn't like the food, but you'll always be taken care of. I found that to be true. I found that to be better than true, actually. So in terms of like, what do I need, what do I not need? Yeah. So I'm going to answer you, of course, but I don't think it's not going to be the definitive answer that you want, because really when you're asking about the spiritual life, and what is it, it really does not lend itself to being defined. It's kind of counter to it. So I would discourage you from trying to define it. What I would go with is the simplest way I describe it to myself is I love something. I love something and I cannot name it. I don't know what it is that I love, but I still know that I love it. And that's what draws me forward and has done for most of my life, is for as long as I've been conscious of it. Now, if you put that in shape on that, like some sort of teaching or some sort of religion or whatever, you box in something that is wild and doesn't want to be boxed in and doesn't allow itself to be boxed in. And eventually it will burst out of any structures that you put on it. So unfortunately, you're stuck with this uncomfortable kind of situation where you're nothing is certain. You never arrive anywhere. You know, it's always just this kind of vague uncertainty, which my mind can't stand. I would love a bit of certainty. I would love to kind of know things, but there are no things to know. There are things to know, but there are no things to know in the way my mind would like to know them, because what my mind wants is a bit of certainty. And in my experience of spiritual life, there's no certainty. It's all mysterious. And it's all vague, and it's very hard to put words on it. So I'll say that. Now, in terms of desires and needs and wants, that's again, there's no like place to arrive at it. Again, it comes from continual looking at what's going on, because all the things that you've brought up are all true. Like, yes, everything is conscious, so if you have to kill something to eat it, whether it's an animal or a plant, it's going to go through pain. So for as long as you're eating things, that's not going to, you're going to have to deal with that. So then it's down to degrees of, well, if I'm going to have a chicken, if I'm going to eat a chicken, I'd like to eat a chicken that was somewhat happy, that had a somewhat nice life, sure, but and that would be better than a chicken that's had a miserable life in a big factory farm, for sure. So there's all consequences, bearing in mind that the whole thing's an illusion anyway. But that's not to say, well, okay, it's all an illusion, I can just do whatever the hell I want, because part of the rules of the game is that there are consequences. So yeah, if you just want to jet travel around the world, part of the rules here is there are consequences to that. There's an environmental thing. You can kind of get all upset about that and go, well, I'm just going to manifest everything, and I'm just going to, I don't believe that and whatever, and there's consequences to that as well. But what I think is more significant is that I kind of go, well, I've set it up in this way. These I've chosen these consequences. I don't understand why. I don't understand why there's a climate emergency. I don't understand what that means, but I look at it in terms of it means something. I'm going to keep looking at it until I begin to get a bit of meaning for it. And certainly for me, it's just part of the whole, like what it symbolizes is just a departure from nature, our external nature, in the the way we look at, we distance ourselves from nature, from this beautiful, look at where I am, like this beautiful beach. We separate ourselves away from something like this, and we think we're different from it. And where that ends up is climate kind of issues. And how we find our way back from something like that is through seeing our part in nature, seeing our own inner nature, seeing the connection of these things, and listening to ourselves and to ourselves as our little hearts and bodies connect to nature. Okay, that's just one little example. Okay, so there's all these. I look at it more in terms of like these. This is all symbolic, it's all like I'm getting my attention about something. So I don't just kind of go, oh, I'm just going to brute force manifest myself out of these things. Because if they exist, then they're there to get my attention about something. So I think that thing of looking for certainty, that's something to let go of. And the fact that it's a bit confusing in your head, that's kind of par for the course. That's the way it goes in my experience of the spiritual life. Because anytime I felt like I've known something, it always got smashed up. It always got broken up. And it got broken up by the very thing that I love. It gets broken up by the thing that moves me, this kind of deep spiritual love that I have for the mystery, for something I can't name, That's one of the things that I really love about Barry, or loved about Barry, is he was the first person I heard saying this, and it was like a bell ring when he just said, I love it, and I can't name it, you know? And I was like, yes, I totally get what he's talking about. And I've had that, you know, it was so, in a weird way, it was so clarifying, because it's a kind of an obscure thing to say, and yet it was so clarifying for me. So like for me, that's where my spiritual life is about. I define it with the non-definition, if you like. And unfortunately, there are no easy cookie cutter kind of answers to the question of desires and needs. You know, it's a moment to moment looking inside, continually asking yourself, do I need this? It's okay to have desires. It's fine to have little things that you want. And again, it all comes down to that thing of kindness and being kind to yourself, you know, to the different parts of you. And in answer to your question about like what am I dealing with, I'm dealing with the same thing you are, and everybody is, as far as I can see. The biggest impediment to my spiritual growth is unconsciousness, my unconsciousness, the bits of unconsciousness I have inside me. And it's not like I feel like I'm a little miner on the inside with my little chisel banging away at my bits of unconsciousness. More feels like a melting kind of thing, more like the sun of the mystery. Sunshine of the mystery melts the ice of my unconsciousness. It's got more of that kind of a vibe to it. That through me just being me and me just loving what I love, I'm a little bit less conscious every day. I'm a little bit less unconscious every day. I'm a little bit more conscious every day. And it does, you know, the more conscious I become, it does kind of feed on itself. So that's the same as everybody, as far as I can see. Everyone's dealing with the same thing. We're all dealing with our unconsciousness. So it's a bit like, I've used this analogy before. It's like up in heaven, if there is a heaven, before we're born. You know, we're in the cafeteria of unconsciousness, and we choose how much unconsciousness we want to have for our life, and we spend our life working through it. You know, and that seems to be the same for everybody. Some people have got, you know, a lot more unconsciousness to deal with than others. But everybody's the same on the inside. Beyond all that, we're all the same, like trying to work it out, you know. So, yeah, that's what I'm dealing with. Same as you, same as everybody. And I think the idea of a journey and a spiritual path, I don't think that's true. That's true in hindsight, that there is a linear quality to it, but in my experience, it's not. Like you never really go anywhere. It's like you're just returning home to somewhere that you've never left. I know that's like, Jesus, what does that mean, John? You know, I'm not trying to be obscure here, but like the idea of a path, there's a sort of a built-in thing there of progression, and that your journey, like if you were taking a journey in a car, you know, it's like, oh, here's the halfway point and here's the destination. It's not like that in my experience. It's like it's like what I was saying about unconsciousness before in another episode. Every time I become conscious of something, it's almost like the unconsciousness never existed, because it's like I'm remembering something. And in the same way, I'm not going anywhere, I'm remembering that I am somewhere. That's probably a better way of putting it. So the idea of a path and the spiritual path and all that, don't think that's actually a good description of it. Not in my experience anyway. So I hope that helped. Right, back to the studio. All right, that's all I have for you this week. I trust you're well. I trust you're of good cheer. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.